Welcome to this special edition of Health and Wellbeing with Beata. It's Thursday, October 30th. Where did the month go? It has flew by. So here we are at the end of October, which many of you may be aware of has been designated Health Breast Cancer Month. But here at Health and Wellbeing with Beata, we prefer to say Breast Health Awareness Month. So tonight I have a very special guest tonight. Sandy is going to share her knowledge and wisdom with me and you and bring us up to date on this issue of breast disease. But first, let's welcome the village. Come on in to my tiny house. It's still kind of tiny, 320 square feet of love, joy, peace, very much peace. It's just me. And so I'm just grateful tonight, very grateful to be able to share with you what I've been learning, especially over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Oh, my goodness, time is moving fast. And we are in such a fast pace of technology. In fact, I heard today the last 10 years have been the most rapid transformation of technology that we have experienced on the planet. 10 years now. So that would be my all through my 60s. Baby boomers and we were adjusting to this new technology like crazy. So here we are. And as many of you know, my partner, my friend, my lover left the planet last Wednesday on the 23rd of October. Took his last breath, and I was very, very grateful that he no longer was in pain and suffering, because it's been almost a year of just pain and suffering with this man. And so we grew distant for a while because we were a long distance relationship anyway, him living an hour and a half away from Orlando on the beach. So I would always love to go visit because the beach is my favorite place to be, especially when it comes to therapy. But this man was so important in my life to be a teacher. And yesterday I found out that the day he took his last breath, October 23rd, was my grandmother's birth Earth Day. Now figure that one out. A lot of synchronicities in that. And so I had to really go, wow. When I first discovered it, I was going through obituaries and my grandmother's came up and my sister was asking, well, when was our grandmother born? And I said, I looked at the obituary and it's October 23rd. I'm like, October 23rd? That's the day that my partner for the last 5 years left the planet. So here's my conclusion, my analysis of those dates, October 23rd for my grandmother and for my partner for 5 years. Grace. I had a lot of complaints with this man because he and I at some point realized we were, quote, unequally yoked. There were just belief systems that he had that did not align with my belief system. So, oh my goodness, I would be struggling with, okay, I don't know if this relationship is going to last. Let's just take a break. And yet we still remained friends over the phone. Over the last several months, we hardly saw much of each other, but we still talked on the phone and shared our love for each other. Because after 5 years, a trip to Cuba, lots of midnight games of Scrabble and chess together, we had a close relationship. But with the revelation, the news that my grandmother's birthday was the same date, October 23rd, that he chose, his soul chose to leave, I came to such a peace of letting go of regret. I had to let go of regret about this relationship. And let me tell you, that's one of the things women hold on to that caused breast disease. This is my journey. I've learned that so clearly that this is one of the things my guest and I, Sandy, are going to talk about, how moving from 30 years ago, when I discovered this book, Breast Cancer, Black Woman, this book is over 30 years old. Okay. And this was discovered in my partner's house, who just left us last week. He had hundreds of books. He read voraciously. This book, Breast Cancer, was one of the few. I kept 5 books out of the hundreds of books he had in his home. When I saw this book, I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. Now, one of the reasons this book was in his possession, because his second wife died of breast cancer. He went through a very sad and traumatic experience with his second wife and her breast cancer. And he became a master herbalist because of that journey. And this was one of the books he read. But I have to say, 30 years ago, this is a book written by a Black doctor who was concerned about the rate of breast disease in Black women 30 years ago. Black women were suffering and dying at a very high rate 30 years ago. Have we changed anything today? My guest and I are going to explore that. And one of the things about this book is there's no holistic references whatsoever in this book. Black women, breast cancer. And that's why my guest is so important tonight, to help us come to a new sorry, where'd you go? Come to a new understanding. We're going to bring her back here. My guest, Sandy Beauford-Muhammad, is here to bring us up to date, shall we say? Because as a spiritual physician, my guest Sandy is well aware of the dynamics of this disease and this mind, body, soul energy that we need to come to grips with to prevent and heal this disease. So welcome, my sister Sandy. How are you? Can you hear me? Hello.
There we go.
Hi there.
Greetings, my dear. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is cold though in Florida. I don't know about Atlanta. I woke up
It's a
to
little
fall.
chilly. It's a little chilly here as well.
I woke up to winter almost. I'm like, what is this? So I had to get out the hoodie, which has been put away all summer, but today was the day to bring out the hoodie.
We've had the hoodies out for a few days now here in Atlanta. It's rain, it's a little chilly. We're preparing for this fall, going into winter soon. Yeah, it's a little chilly. The weather is sending us signs of the time. That's what that is.
Yes, indeed, especially when I think about what's going on in Jamaica. And I got lots of information. I did a quick show last night where I played a little video about a woman talking about harp and the manipulation going on because of the frequency and vibration in that area is so high that the
Mhm.
psychopaths are not happy about that. So anyway, here we are.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for making time to talk to our audience about this month of breast health. We want to call it breast health because both of us are doing what we believe can make a difference in women's health from this book. Oh my goodness. I was reading through it right before the show and I went all the way through and I'm like, okay, where's the holistic view? Where's the holistic view? And I'm like, no, it's not here. It is not here. So again, more than 30 years ago, they were not talking about what we are doing today. So
Right.
Sandy, let's start off telling our audience a little bit about you. I would love to know a little bit about your background, where you were birthed into this planet, and how you came to be this goddess that you are today.
Oh, let me first just give honor. I'm tremendously grateful for all that I've been gifted, all that I am being gifted, all that's flowing to me, and the beautiful, beautiful people that have sown into me. So I am here not of my own. I know nothing, and I've been truly blessed to have received blessings from my spiritual fathers, um, William Thomas and Dr. Mark Armstrong. Um, I'm grateful to the universal presence of God, Allah, Jehovah, whichever name you call them by. I give honor to all of that because I am nothing uh, of myself. And I also like to say thank you for inviting me to your show to talk about this very, very important subject, to us as women and to us as women of color. So I'm grateful. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And I want to just
Oh,
add that men need this just as much as women, because when I read this book written by a man, a black man, and the level of ignorance and education and intellect mixed in here, we don't want any more men walking in that energy. Okay, tonight, my sister and I are inviting the men to absorb this knowledge we're sharing and this energy, because you're the support of any woman that has to go through this. And I might add, men are getting breast cancer too, so it's not just the women who are suffering. So let us all, and male, female, come together tonight and take whatever the spirit gives us to share, so that we can be better. This book is telling me we can do better than this. And that means, men, you got to step up and support the women. And the best way you can support them is have knowledge that they need.
yes, ma'am. The statistics are showing that men as well as women, um, in different stages of life, are also being told of this dis-ease, um, them having contracted for whatever reason, any number of reasons, in many different places of the body. Some of them are even unheard of. However, it is showing up in men and women and children, alike. So it's not discriminatory in the
Right.
least bit.
Right, right, right. And you, as we talked about earlier, you've been studying German New Medicine, and to me, that's been the key to getting to the root of it, understanding how to prevent it, and then sharing that is so important as we learn more about the brain, how the brain, the psyche, and the body work together as a whole system. And that's what they missed in this book. No, 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 they didn't bring all
Interesting.
that together. They did not bring all that together at all. In fact, this man was promoting chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, and then breast implants in the book. Whoa! It got worse as I turned the pages. I was like, okay, he's writing a book of
Yeah.
2009.
Yes, ma'am.
That was his time. He died in 2009. The book was written
Mm-hmm.
in 1993, though. So,
Mm-hmm.
so where did you start your journey on this planet?
Yes. Thank you so much for coming back to that. I realized I was giving thanks and said nothing about the question that you asked me.
But I think
So
with you
thank you.
expressing gratitude, you have put us at a high vibration. So thank you
Yes, indeed.
for
Yes,
understanding
indeed.
that expressing gratitude brings keeps us up here. So
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So my background is actually in court reporting. I was a court reporter for over 30 years and
Wow.
I retired. Absolutely, yes. I retired from court reporting. I went into semi-retirement before I actually fully retired. I've been fully retired for 10 years, and I was in semi-retirement for 4 years as I realized that my calling in life was beyond the courtroom and beyond legislative proceedings. And I knew that because while I would be sitting in those spaces, I could pick up the energy of people. And I could also, about 99% of the time, predict how a case was going to eventually be judged. And
Fun.
that is by me sitting and listening, because that's all that I did for my entire career. Of course, to be a court
Wow.
reporter, you have to be a great listener.
Yes.
Um, and then I was able to not only listen, but I could scan the room and I can pick up the energy, the facial expressions, um, the body gestures, to tell what a person might be thinking. While everybody else might be diverted looking somewhere else, I'm scanning the entire room. And then I realized, oh, wow, there's an ability that I've been blessed with that's coming forth in my later years of court reporting.
Wow.
And so Minister Farrakhan asked 2,000 of the Nation of Islam believers to go through a study course of Dianetics. And through that study course is where I eventually realized that my calling was no longer as a court reporter in the courtroom and as a listener in the courtroom. It really was as a listener to hear the pains, the trauma, the experiences of people that I may come in contact with or that are called to work with me to help them through that. I had witnessed a lot of things and why they happened the way that they happened. And then with that knowledge and ability to listen and discern and see, like to be able to see what you're saying and also see what you're not saying, then I then developed that into a practice. And so I began through Dianetics. I had been studying health and wellness before that time, just for myself and my family. However, this projected me more into the therapy or counseling aspect of it. And I began to offer services for 2 years free. I closed my court reporting office down and I opened up a holistic health and wellness center here in Atlanta. And I started that way. While I was in semi-retirement, I was full-time court reporting. I was part-time offering these services to really make sure that this is what I wanted to do, to really make sure that I felt confident and competent to help the people that needed help. And so that's a little bit of my background and how I found my way into what I do now. And then from there, just being adopted by my spiritual father, Dr. Mark Armstrong, who's a naturopathic doctor here in the Atlanta area, very renowned doctor. My spiritual father, William Thomas, who transitioned over a year ago, who sold into me from the perspective of higher consciousness, of higher thinking, of just being a pure heart and how to be a servant. So, coupled with my parents, who my father transitioned several years ago. He had been a minister with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as well, a minister with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And my mother supported him through all of the moves that we made, moving across the country, being a servant to our people. And through all of that and witnessing all of that, my heart was just preconditioned to one, being of service, and then two, not just of service, but to truly get to where a person's, an individual's life can be transformed better than how they were before I met them. So that is how I found my way into this, what we call holistic health and wellness.
So, were you born in Atlanta?
Yes, I was born here in Atlanta. I am a native Atlantan. I moved away and completed, yes, ma'am. I moved away and completed high school in New York. And then I went to college in Rhode Island and Chicago. And then I found my way after living in Florida for several years. I found my way back to Atlanta. So, yes, I am a native Atlanta.
Wow, that is amazing too. I can just see you typing in the courtroom, scanning the room. It's like for 30,
Absolutely.
it's hard to believe you did that for 30 years. Wow.
Absolutely. And my clients, I worked with some of the most prominent clients here in the Atlanta area, and they would always at a break would ask for a conversation with me to get what I'm picking up in the courtroom, or to get, you know, were there any questions that might have needed to have been answered or that they may have overlooked. Yeah. I would always have a sidebar if in fact they were attorneys that actually hired me on their behalf. I would give them feedback based upon what I witnessed, what I saw. um I would even share sometimes if there was a line of questioning that they were asking the witness, and when they would tap upon something that was very pertinent, I could see the reaction of the opposing counsel and how they could not want the witness to answer certain questions. And I would just simply say to the attorney that might have hired me, you might want to continue that line of questioning because there is something there.
So, do you mean
So
to tell me that court reporters are hired by an attorney?
So we are hired by a couple of entities, many entities. When I first started as a court reporter, I was what is called an independent contractor. So attorneys in the Chicago area would call the agency, and I would be sent out on depositions where attorneys needed the record made for a deposition that they may have had. Then I was also called by the city of Chicago. I worked with the fire department when they would hold their meetings. I would be taking down the conversations of a panel. Um, I even worked with the IRS. So whenever there were reviews, so I've been hired by the IRS when there were cases that would come and they needed a record of the testimony of someone that they needed to call in and create a record. I mean, every single entity under the sun needs some type of formal record. And because we are sworn under oath to accurately reflect what we hear, then anytime you need, I've even worked with private investigators where I would ride with them to witnesses if there were important accidents or situations that happen. I would ride with the private investigator to take private statements of witnesses that could be utilized in insurance claims. I mean, I even was the court reporter when the deregulation here for the natural gas. I was the court reporter on the town hall meetings here. I mean, I've reported. I could probably write a book of the places and spaces that I've been in.
And what you saw, yes. And
And what
heard.
I saw, and
Yeah.
what I heard, and what
Now,
I heard.
let me ask you, how long did you have to train to use that little machine that you're using?
Yeah. So there are two forms of court reporting. There's a form where they're called mask writers, and they're actually repeating what is being said and identifying who is saying it to create a written record so that it can be a transcript used in a legal proceeding. And then there are machine writers, what they write with their hand. They listen and they write with their hand. So I was a machine writer, and I learned real time. So when I would write, I'd have my computer set up and you could instantly see what was being said in real time, like closed captioning now, which is very prominent. I did a little bit of that as well with the news station so that hearing impaired individuals could know what was being said. I even worked with college students who were hearing impaired, and I would go to classes with them to write down what was being said by the professors, and then they could be included in the conversations as well. Yeah, so I went to school. I was a machine writer, and I went to school and I completed school in 4 years. So you would think court reporting, wow, 4 years. Yes, we have to be very proficient in terminology. We have to be very familiar with all different areas of legalization, whether it's law, whether it's medical, whether it's architectural. We study a little bit of everything to be able to be competent to write it as we hear it.
Yes, of course, of course. I have admired when I'm watching a courtroom scene how that person, that court reporter is just going. I'm like, how are they catching all those words and how are they doing that? I'm like, that takes some real skill. So I honor you for your perseverance, your dedication, and then to stay in there for 30 years. That's like, oh my goodness. We give thanks to the Most High Creator for putting you,
Mm,
planting you in that field to
I'm
learn,
grateful.
you learn, to help you become the spiritual physician, which is like, we got to connect that now. The courtroom scene and paying attention to what I say human energy that comes in the form of words and body movement and facial expressions, all that you were being trained for 30 years.
Little did I know, and I appreciate that training now because it becomes very useful when we're talking about the subject of breast cancer and its origins and what are some of the commonalities that individuals have experienced when they are told that, all right, you have been diagnosed with this. There's a common thread, and that common thread a lot of times is stress, being overworked, being little rest, having to be responsible for a lot of things. Um, it's so many different things that are common. And I had made myself some notes, specifically suppressing emotions, a history of trauma, um ignoring the symptoms, feeling unseen, carrying ancestral um burdens. Like these are all commonalities, and it's not limited to race, gender. It's not limited to any of these things. And so when I began along this journey and I realized how, and I'll do a little comment from my book soon to be published, From a Child's Perspective. What I've witnessed over the years is that a lot of our concerns that we have as adults are unresolved issues from childhood, and
Absolutely.
it predispose us, it pre-expose us to the things that happen in our life later on in life. Like this happened in our younger years. We have a perspective about these certain things. So as we get older, we're going to respond a certain way, and it just snowballs from there.
Yeah.
So I talk about that a little bit, a lot in my book based on client studies that I've done over the last 15 years.
And
Um,
you say later people respond, they more like react because what you just described, it hits on this book where he says women remind women, church women of the danger signals of breast cancer and the importance of early detection. You just pointed out the danger signals, the suppressed emotions, all the stress, and early detection is consciousness. Because women who go through everything you just described, they're not conscious that they're creating this imbalance in their breasts. And so
mhm.
when you say respond, we want to help women realize you can, if you're going to keep reacting to your past, what they call ACEs. Are you familiar with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences?
No, I've not heard of that.
Okay, ACEs is what you just described ACEs
Mm-hmm.
because it's the childhood traumas, adverse childhood experiences that will determine what kind of disease you're going to have in your adult life. This is a
That
study that
makes
was
sense.
done by Kaiser Permanente, and there's lots of information now on YouTube about it. But when you are not aware that these are the danger signals, the stress, suppress, not feeling or talking about your emotions, not having a support system. And I just think about how many people you pick that up on in the courtroom alone. You know,
Well,
people with anxiety coming in that courtroom, people all
mm-hmm.
upset and angry.
Mm-hmm.
The anger. How about how much anger did you witness?
I witnessed a lot of fear,
Oh,
especially us as people of color. We are so nervous when we come into the legal proceeding, and rightfully so, not necessarily saying that we should be, however, rightfully so, because of the history that follows us and the legal system, which has not protected us as a whole, right?
right,
And so
right.
when we come inside of that system, I see fear immediately where you can't even hear the question that's being asked of you to even answer appropriately. And so, what I would do is when I would see that, I would look at an individual and I would smile and I would nod my head to them to send them the energy that they need, that you don't have to be afraid. You can you have friends that you don't know about in spaces like this. And I would do that. I can't tell you how many times I would do that. And then okay, I gotta write a book about this. And I am gonna write a book about this, where when questions would be asked and they wouldn't quite know how to answer, I would nod my head, I would do this, I would do this. And that's how I knew you best to get your butt out of this field, because you about to get your butt hung up in a slinger because you practicing law without a license. I'm like, I gotta help my people and not be jeopardizing jail time for helping them. We needed that type of support in a
Oh,
system like that.
yes.
And no, let me tell you, people do it for other people all the time and is never talked about. They
Yeah.
come in the courtroom, the judge will say something that assists a person in a certain way, an attorney will say something in a certain way. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm led to help somebody, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And that's what I would do. So fear is one of the main things that I witnessed in that arena. And I would, from as best as I could, help to alleviate some of that fear, that go ahead and listen. These people are normal people just like you and I. They go to the bathroom just like you and I. And you can stand in your right, be respectful, and listen to the question and answer accordingly with with confidence, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
So fear is one of the things that is connected to diseases of the body as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. If you read Power versus Force by David Hawkins,
I have my autographed copy.
that map of consciousness puts fear down at the bottom of your frequency. So here's the thing I'm thinking as you're talking, the courtroom can be seen as the doctor's offices. And we can tonight say, don't go in that courtroom without an advocate. I
That's
would
right.
say anybody who thinks they have a problem with their breasts and I got to go see my doctor, you better take somebody with you. Because
Yes,
what do they
yes.
do but put fear on you? That's their game plan.
So
We're
it's
gonna
called shock and awe. When
yes,
someone places you in shock and awe,
yes,
all of your energetic body, all of the energetic body, all of your analytical mind shuts down.
yes, yes, yes.
It shuts down. And
So
that's not helpful for any treatment that you might want to seek out as well.
So you go into the doctor's office, the courtroom. Let's just say the courtroom, and the other person is the one who's saying, I don't feel well. What's wrong with me?" And you go back, and they have all the test results. You sit in the corner and you tell the patient, "Watch me," and everything that doctor says, you go,
Right,
"That's
right,
what's needed. This is what's
right.
needed." Do not,
That
the
is
ladies,
exactly,
men, whether it's a man going, your husband, you don't go in that office without an advocate like Sandy.
absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
that's where they get into the shock and awe and fear.
That's
And then they
right.
don't know what to do other than submit to the poison, the cut burn poison, because they're afraid. They're afraid.
Absolutely. No matter who you are, when you get news like that, it destabilizes you. It just does. And from that moment, what you do next is going to dictate what happens to the body. It dictates what happens to the body. And so I like what you said with reference to having an advocate. So we talked a little bit about some of the things that can expose you and create a breeding ground, I'll say, for what we're referring to as cancer. And I like to think about cancer not so much from the perspective of it's something that somebody tells you you have and you're going to die, because that is what most often we're told, and we never research what actually is happening with the body. You and I spoke a little bit earlier about the new German
That German new medicine, yeah.
yeah, the German new medicine and its take on diseases, including cancer. And it talks specifically about how you how you were one birth, like in the embryo, like the development of your body, right? It talks a lot about that. And it
Mhm.
talks about how in that development, when you are birthed, when you are born, and then things happen to you in life, then they can go back and they can look at your brain, they can look at your organs, and they can pinpoint specific moments and times in life leading all the way back to in vitro. That is simply amazing to me. So, and it's also, they also believe, and I believe as well, that anything that shows up can also be corrected. So this is why an advocate is so important to have, because at a moment of shock and awe, your analytical mind, the things that we are talking about right now, it shuts down. You're
Yeah,
not thinking from this perspective. So having someone with you that can support you, that can help be your voice when you're in this moment of shock and awe is very, very important. Um, I,
absolutely.
I just wanted to share that part because in the new German medicine, it looks at all diseases, not from the perspective of an immediate onset of death or you're dying. It looks at it from the perspective that when you properly address what is showing up, you can, I'm going to paraphrase it in my words, you can uncreate something the same way that it was created.
Exactly. And in fact, they refer to it as conflicts that show up that actually produce a lesion on the brain.
Yes.
When you really study it, it's just so fascinating because you realize even my sister who had breast cancer, when she lost feeling on one side and they took x-ray of her brain, they found a lesion on her brain, 3 lesions on her,
Mm.
which all pointed to the traumas that had occurred in the sense of German new medicine. Each one, boom, lesion, next one, lesion, the death of her daughter. And so then you study it to find out that the 3 layers of the skin are like relays to the
Mm,
particular organ that connects with the lesion. It's like, whoa.
yes.
So that if we can get this message out to women, we can really get rid of the fear, because we're so powerfully made, and master design is like a, it's like a machine. Once you get to know it, you don't have to have fear. You just have to work with this.
Absolutely.
And that's what's
So
amazing.
you know, you mentioned your sister, about it has been maybe 6 months ago. My cousin's wife had been diagnosed with cancer, and she had been doing really, really well. But then she had this really quick uh, turn where she was just losing weight, didn't want to eat. And my cousin asked me to come and visit her. So I went and visited her a couple of times. And while I was there with her, the thing that came out in a private conversation, I asked her, I said, tell me about, what happened? Like, you were progressing, and then, what happened? And she just got really, really quiet with me. And I said, tell me, what do you believe this is? And she started tearing up. And she said to me, you know what? I worked for this company for all of my life, over 40 years. And when it came time for me to retire, they did not want to give me my retirement. After I gave my life, my children, I sacrificed time with my children, and I did all of this. But I could not believe that when it came time for me to retire, there were people who turned their backs on me and did not want to give me what was rightfully mine. She said that hurt my heart to the core. And she said to me, I believe that is what happened to my body. I never forgave. I never let that go. I never released that. And in about 2 weeks after that conversation, she had transitioned. And so what you shared with me about your sister and the identification of the brain and the lesions on the brain and the trauma, I cannot stress, especially people of color, because a lot of times we don't believe in asking for help. you know when we have been overcome by stress, it is important to have somebody that you can speak to, somebody that you can talk to, somebody that can help give you some type of guidance. Seek them out. If you do not have them, seek them out, because it internalizes and it eats away at the infrastructure of who we are. And so we're talking today about cancer. However, this is applicable to any disease of the body. This month is cancer awareness month. That means that more and more awareness is coming about, talking about this one thing that is impacting our community more and more every year. More and more every year. Why is that? I think some of it is contributing to technology, the lifestyle. I think we talked a little bit about this, you and I, a little earlier. Our lifestyle, how it's changed, and how we are so dependent on fast, quick, and a hurry. So things are now being duplicated fast, quick, and a hurry, and our bodies are feeling the impact of that. You know, um, I you go ahead and share. I've been talking. I could go on and on and on about this, and some of the things that I've identified and have come across and have been told about cancer.
Well, you started out on such a high level of awareness and consciousness with the courtroom, sister, because the courtroom can now be whatever environment a person is in, where there's a judge, a jury, and if you don't have an advocate in there, shame on you. My computer
This
is
is
really acting
true. This
weird.
is so
So
true.
I wanted to just mention to
Mm,
you, there was a friend of mine whose brother worked for Eastern Airlines. I think it was Eastern Airlines. And it was a similar to what your friend went through when he retired, or when Eastern went out of business. One of those airlines collapsed. They wouldn't give him his pension. Now, this was a black man who was a pilot for like, I don't know, 25, 30 years, long period with this company, like your friend, he developed prostate cancer. Because with prostate cancer, the ego is hugely offended by something. And in this
Yes,
case,
ma'am.
his company offended him greatly, just like the woman you described, where she was offended. And if we don't know how to let that go and forgive and move on and understand the reason, just like with my this week with my grandmother's birthday being the same date as my partner's death date, what it did for me was took me out of regret. I had so much regret about this relationship I was in. And it's like, why am I in this? And oh, this is frustrating. And why is this man so angry? And when I saw that my mother, my ancestral grandmother, the energy of that past life had collided, had come together with my partner last week on the 23rd of October, I told my friend Kwame today, I said, I had to let go of all regret about that relationship. I was like, this is
Mm.
synchronicity at its best. And I told someone else about it, and they said, oh, I'm so sorry. You had your grandmother's death had to be shared with your partner. I'm like, no, that was like deliverance for me. Oh, and I was holding in a lot of regret with that
Yes.
relationship, a lot of sadness, holding in a lot of low frequency emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
when that information came to me about my grandmother's date and his date, it's like, oh, let that go. It's all in divine order. It's all in divine order.
Absolutely.
So I'm grateful for the lessons now. And how many
And
people in your courtroom,
mm-hmm.
sister, had came out with gratitude?
Absolutely. It's really an honor to be able to have an insight and to be able to see specific things and how they correlate to the body and the workings of the body. I'll tell you, it has taken me several years to be able to verbalize what it was that I was seeing starting in the courtroom, and then starting with having conversations with individuals and how the trauma of their lives presented them in front of me for whatever reason they were going through the stresses of life. And believe it or not, most times what they may have shared with me, or their reason why they were coming to speak with me, had nothing really to do with the truth of what was happening to them, whether it was mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. And so being aware of your body, which is what I wanted to come back to and share with you, the gratitude that you expressed in allowing yourself to release the regret. So, a few things I'd like to share with our listening audience. And thank you, everyone who has joined us. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. And I hope that you'll receive something here that you can take back for yourself and possibly share with someone else.
Yeah,
Share this video if you're looking at it. Share it with someone. It's going to be on all of my social platforms as well, because this is a very, very important topic. And it covers, we're talking about cancer. However, it covers truly any disease of the body. Um, your ability to allow yourself to release something seemingly unrelated to your grandmother. Every single thing is connected. The awareness that you had about that was the key. And that's a part of identifying what's happening with the body, being aware of subtle changes. Some of us are not aware of subtle changes. I myself have bruised myself, and then I go back and now look me like, now, where did that come from? Like, when did that happen? At some point in time, I was so distracted that I did not feel the pain of my body. This is very, that's something simple. However, it can be something more severe than just a bruise to the body. It can be the body speaking to you. because the body will tell you. So, a couple of things I'd like to recommend, along with what you just said, with your ability to release the regret and related to the coincidences of his death and your grandmother's birth. I believe you said.
Right, right.
Um, the first thing I'd like for us to do is to have an opportunity, if not once a day for 30 seconds or 1 minute, to just get quiet, to silence the noise. We are so distracted. We are so have so many things pulling on us. And if you recall, one of the things that I had read off as some of the things that are common in patients who have been diagnosed with cancer. One is stress, being overworked, professionals, those who don't have a profession, striving to just make ends meet, coming into connection with silence. That is, no matter who or what you believe in, giving yourself a moment to connect with that source in gratitude, just for, if it's not for 30 seconds, once a day, you'll begin to realize things that are happening in your life and why they're happening. You'll begin to see the connectivity of coincidences. And that's what life is all about, identifying synchronicities, which is what I did. I learned later in the courtroom, identifying patterns and identifying synchronicities and identifying why this is like that and how that is connected to that. And then it shows up as this. When we get silent in the stillness, then we can see synchronicities. That's the first thing that I like to recommend to individuals, getting quiet. The next thing I would like to recommend is to have some type of medical professional to connect with, whether it is a holistic health and wellness provider, whether it's a traditional doctor, someone that you feel comfortable with, not just going to the doctor because they said go to the doctor, but choose someone that you feel comfortable with. That is one of the most important things, even in the law. You know, I would, even now when when I share with people, they always come to me to get referrals for attorneys. I say you always want to choose an attorney that coincides with your personality. You don't want a bulldog for someone who's mild mannered, because you all will constantly be in opposition. It's the same way that you would choose a health professional. You make sure that it is someone that you're comfortable with, that's going to give it to you straight, and that you can speak freely with. You can express your concerns. That's another thing that I would recommend to you. The other thing that I would recommend to you is, if you have trauma in your life, seek help. Don't brush it under the rug, because what is brushed under the rug will come out screaming in all inappropriate ways. Seek someone that can help you with whatever traumas you've had. There are a lot of free services out here that you can, even in this day and time, you can get a listening ear. Somebody can help you, at least, if not completely resolve what it is, that can begin that process. You'd be amazed on what happens when you can just talk about this thing that you've been silent for over 30 or 40 years ago, that might have happened to you. You'd be surprised at how just talking about it can shift every single thing in your environment, in your life, in your children's life. We talked about ancestry, right? You are an ancestor. Even though you are still alive today, you are and I are ancestors, because there are those who are coming after us. When we can do what we can do at this moment in time, then those coming after us will have a lot easier time with moving through these things that we are dealing with. So that's something. And then the last thing that I want to say is, have some type of prayer life. And I say prayer life because whether it's meditation, whether it's traditional prayer, have some type of prayer life. Have something that you can believe in that is higher than yourself. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying a spooky God or a spooky out there in the ethers. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the creator of all that is. You know, I didn't create it. You know, you didn't create it. Something, someone created all that we see and is still creating what we don't see. And so having a relationship with a higher being. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I believe you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
The creator of all that is, somebody that you can go in solitude for, and you believe that can hear your cries, hear your prayers, and can give you peace of heart. And peace of heart can get us through this moment in time that we're living in right now, which can contribute to diseases. Just the turning on the news, turning on social media, you can fall into a trap of a disease just by listening to something that can cause a chemical reaction in your body. And so these are some of the things that I share with my clients, and I'm sharing with you that hopefully with utilizing these, if you don't use all of them, pick something that resonates with you and try it if you haven't tried. And if you have tried it, let me tell you this, don't stop, because the times are getting harder. And I always say, whatever you utilize to get you through this is what we're going to utilize to keep us going. And so it's a trial right now in a lot of our lives right now. These things will keep you grounded, will keep you strong. Oh, last thing. I said that was the last thing. The last thing is to sit yourself in nature. I
Yes.
cannot stress to you how
Yeah.
important it is to take your shoes off and plant your feet on earth, Mother Earth. I cannot stress to you. You go to a place, and when you first start doing it, I get my clients doing this all the time. It's a little bit awkward. You looking around trying to see who's looking at you. Work your way up, put yourself into nature.
Yes.
If you
Yeah.
can't go anywhere but outside your door and your grass is clean, or even if it's concrete, take your shoes off and put your skin to earth. All right. So I'll pause right there for now.
Well, you spoke what was in my mind about nature, because I was going to add that to what you had already said. But I got clarity about my grandmother's birth by going to the forest. There is a
Mm,
middle of Orlando. There's a place called Barnett Park, and they got playground, they got basketball court, but off to the side is a forest. I mean, a forest of just trees everywhere and a little path where you can walk. And that's where I got clarity about my grandmother. I just
mm.
walked, and I was the only person walking in there to that day. And I just walked and looked at the trees. So we would add barefoot and hug some trees, because those trees,
Absolutely.
more and more research is coming out about the wiring connection in the earth that run in the roots of those trees, that is coming up through the trunk, that gives you the frequency and vibration that aligns with the creator's love and wisdom and nourishment, that we all need to take advantage of. We've been kind of ignoring those trees. Oh, they're
Yes,
pretty, they're
indeed.
nice. But I was driving down a road too, on my way home today, and it's like a canopy of trees. You all you see, and I just was, wow, thank you for your nourishment. I'm driving, thank you for your beauty, thank you for your love. And by the time you have expressed that love for nature, you're going to feel better. You're going to just be flying.
Mhm.
So everything you're saying, it's like, yes, yes, yes. And do nature. Go to the beach. Go wherever you can to be in alignment with the creator's natural elements. So, and
Mhm.
the quiet, it's hard for people to get into that state of quiet and stillness Turn the Wi-Fi off, turn the phone off, put the phone down. I see people riding their bikes or walking with their phones. Oh, no, 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 no. You got to let go of that gadget for a while to give your body a chance to really express the love and energy that's coming out of every cell in your body. So yes, yes, yes. This is the healing. This is the solution that a lot of women are missing, who are trusting oncologists and these professionals who are not in touch with nature and holistic healing and the physician. Let me, by the way, let me just acknowledge uh, the people who are here tonight. I really appreciate. First of all, we got manifestations of divinity. Greetings, family. Greetings to you.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Carmelita.
Yay. And then we have, of course, Washita Wellness Center. Let's see, what is that? Wow, Sacred Scribe. Yes, yes, yes. We know who that is. Tawida.
Oh,
Let's
our Sister Tawida.
Yes. And then she has more symbols that I can hardly see. Love symbols there. And Four Walls TV, I think that's my brother Vauban. Thank you for joining us tonight. Regina Wilson, yes, learn to hug a tree. And even if you are just embarrassed to hug a tree, because sometimes when I go to that tree, I'm like, but then I'm like, I'm hugging the tree. Just put your hands on the tree and connect mentally and verbally with the tree, thanking the tree. And oftentimes I take my shoes off and stand there touching the earth with my hands on the tree and just thank
Yes,
the tree for the nourishment, for the protection, and for the love that it brings us. So yes, that's we got to learn to hug that tree and just stand there and touch, get in touch, and then water the ocean, a little pond, any form of water that
that's right.
we can connect to and feel that vibration. I spent time at the beach this week. That's my favorite place to be. I gotta
I
find
can
it.
see your tan. I can see your
Yeah,
tan,
in
honey.
Florida, I get the tan going. So I spent
I
a
love it.
lot of time in the sun this week, and then today tonight it's gonna be in the 50s. So I'm not gonna be going outside probably tomorrow. But yes, we are in harmony about the root of cancer, what women are, what's causing this breast imbalance, I want to say. And one of the things that women we have to learn to do is listen to our body, listen to our breast. When my sister passed from after being her caretaker for 9 months, my left nipple retracted. It was going inward, and I'm
Wow.
trying to pull it out, and then we go right back in, and then it started to be a little pain around there. So
Mm,
German new medicine helped me recognize what was going on with that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So my
mm-hmm.
go-to was not only awareness that I had taken care of my sister like a child for 9 months, and when she passed, I was disappointed. I was sad. All these emotions went right into that nipple, went boom, going back in. And then
Um,
frankincense oil and and I think almond oil I use. I rubbed that on that breast for several days. I think it wasn't longer than a week, and just talk to the
mm-hmm,
breast, talk to your body about. Oh, thank you for talking to me. I thank my breast for
mm-hmm.
and showing me how out of balance I was in my emotions. Just like with
Yes,
my partner, having a lot of regret and sadness and just low frequency emotions, was my body was starting to talk to me on my right side. I mean, my body was talking to me, and just my back was hurting from this journey of letting go of him from my life. I had a backache. So today I went and saw my acupuncture physician, and she gave me this nice massage on my back. And I told her that we got to let go all this energy that I'm carrying of sadness, whatever. And so no, having no pain right now. And that's what,
that's a blessing.
like you said, we need support. women.
Yes, ma'am. Were there any questions from our audience before? Because there was something else I wanted to share too. Did anyone have any comments or questions they wanted us to
We
acknowledge?
don't see any questions here, so you can go ahead
Okay.
and share whatever you have next.
Okay, very good. So I wanted to talk about there is a process that I do, which is called family mapping. And what you just mentioned as a caretaker happens a lot of times, especially when um, we love those who we are caring for, and we are hoping that they are able to continue on in life, you know, that we then can take on the emotional trauma. It can be transferred to others. One of the things that we have to be mindful of, especially people of color, is at moments in times of death, when someone is transitioning, we a lot of times will say certain things and we think that we're saying it to that individual who is left here of the living. We're thinking that we're doing a good thing, and we say things like, make sure that you take care of X, Y, and Z. Will you promise me that you will do X, Y, and Z? And that leaves the person, the people who are still here, with a bond. And sometimes that bond can be life altering for the person who's carrying it. Um, so that's another something that happens with an individual who's caring. We have to be mindful of that, not to put any undue stress on those that we may be leaving behind. And then the one who is doing the caring to, looks like, did we have a comment there?
No, that was oh, here's a comment here from Kwame. He says, "How do we clear emotional hoarding?"
Ah, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that I understand what you mean by that word, because my perspective of hoarding means you are holding on to things which are no longer useful. At one moment in time, there was a use for it. However, it has outstayed its course. It has no its applicability to your life is no longer applicable, and you're deciding to hold on to it. So the first thing is to be able to identify the things that you are holding on to which are no longer beneficial. And there's a process that I do that's called access consciousness, where I place my hands, or a practitioner will place their hands on your head, and I am speaking to you energetically, they're speaking to you energetically, and we're touching these points of perspectives, whether it's about life, love, connecting with other individuals, with creating the life that you want. And I am speaking energetically to you, and I'm asking you if there's anything that is no longer beneficial for you. Are you willing to uncreate and destroy it and send it back to where it came from, never to return again? So the first thing is to identify what is no longer useful for you, and then the second thing is to send it back to where it came from in love and light, never to return again. Now that sounds very simple. However, if we are emotionally attached to something, it can be very difficult. So then I would say to you, what is the emotional connection? What does this thing represent? Because the things that you're hoarding usually represent something of lack within you that you feel you've got to hold on to it. And if you were to let it go, that's a piece of you leaving. And the truth of the matter is, it might be a piece of you leaving. However, it's a piece that might need to leave to create space for something new, more vibrant, more loving, more fulfilling, and more applicable for the moment in time that you're in at the moment. So, those are a few things that I would say that can help an individual if you're hoarding emotions which are no longer beneficial to you. I hope that answered your question.
Now he's putting in generational trauma maybe as something more direct or specific about what he was referring to as hoarding.
Okay, so if it's generational, that means that it doesn't belong to you, first and foremost. If it's ancestral and it is generational, it does not belong to you. You may be carrying it, however, it does not belong to you. And so I would first say identify what is it, if you can identify, because some things will show up as one thing, but it's really something else. It'll manifest itself in a physical way, but it's really something else. So if in fact, is that him giving us more clarity?
No, that's a new one. Finish. Go ahead,
Oh,
finish.
okay. So if in fact it is something that you are aware of the specific of, you know where it came from, who it came from, and how it shows up in your life, that's a plus. However, if you find yourself doing something on a consistent basis, or someone else doing something to you on a consistent basis, and you don't know why, then that's something different. So I'll address from this perspective. If you find yourself doing something and you're not quite sure why you do this thing that you do, and you believe that it's ancestral, look if you can, whoever is the oldest person in your family, and try to gather whatever information you can. If you're not trained with being able to trace um a pattern throughout your family, if you're not trained to do that, the easiest way would be to have conversations with your family to find out who did this, or who does this, or who was this done to, because that can give you insight on how it got to you. So that would be my first recommendation. And once you find out what that is, where it started, then I would recommend that you go and do some ancestral praying, some rituals. I'm not saying no hoodoo, no out in there, and no, I'm saying, if depending upon how you want to address this, find someone that you trust, or someone can recommend somebody to you that can help you cut the ties to whatever that is that keeps showing up in your life. That would be my recommendation. Now, if you do know, then you are ahead of the game. If you have all of the answers already and just have not been able to break that cycle, then I would say to you, there are some questions that you got to ask yourself: is what is attracting you to this thing? What is the attraction? What is the connectivity with you and this thing? When you begin what I call self inquiry, not from the perspective of beating yourself up, no, not from that perspective, but open ended questions to explore, then you're going to get a lot of the answers of what you're seeking. So I hope that answer gave you some insight on some places and where to start with getting to some of the answers that you need.
Now he's going into in our DNA, which is always something to think about, right? But
Hmm.
how much of that is related to the generational trauma?
Okay. It's very real. My spiritual father, William Thomas, taught me a lot of work energetically about the DNA. The DNA is a very powerful, because it holds the history of not just our generation, but all the way back through time. And so I would say, with reference to DNA, and I guess we can't have like a one-on-one conversation. I'm kind of limited to the question, so I'm going to answer as best as I can with what it is that you're asking about. Um, there are what they call inside of our DNA dormant items, and it sometimes takes something to happen in our life to activate something else. So, what I would say with reference to, if it's something you're asking about in your DNA, not generally, because I can't answer a general question, but if it's something that you're asking about that's in your DNA, or you're wanting to work on something that's in your heritage, that's in your line, Kwame. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
He's
If it's
he's
some,
calling in to get a
oh,
maybe
okay, okay,
be more
okay, okay,
specific.
okay.
So go ahead, Kwame.
Good evening, Sister Viata, and good assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, the reason I asked that question is because, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joyce DeGruy, and she
Yes.
talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome. And the part is that in our mitochondria DNA, like you were saying, that you had someone that was showing you that genetically in our DNA, we have recorded memories, but the activation could happen now today. It happened in the 1800s or somewhere in a generation or two back. So what we're looking at is how do we reprogram us genetically? This is what Bruce Lipton talks about in saying that how you can reprogram the DNA. And this is what I'm sharing and asking. Yeah, we can do certain things in the moment, but how do we have it to where that, okay, my example would be my father was an alcoholic, his father was an alcoholic. I became an alcoholic and drug addict. I got clean in 1981, and now I had two children that have never known their dad to be a drinker or a drugger. And the part for is that we have a process of beginning to breaking the generational curse by being the example to the next 7 generations, if possible.
Yes. Okay. That's a very profound question, and I'm gonna simplify it because it can be very complex. But what I've been taught by my father, Abdul Allah Muhammad, he would teach me how to take words and break them down and then just use our common sense to be able to address it, because it sounds like it's very profound, and it is profound, but yet it's very simple. So let's start with this. What is DNA? DNA carries the genetic instructions for the development, functioning, and reproduction of all known organisms and many viruses. So the operative word here is it's carrying instruction. Where did the instruction come for the DNA to act in a specific way? Where did the instruction come? So let's just think about it. If you instruct your child, whenever dad comes home, I want you to make sure that you come and you greet dad. So now what you're doing is you didn't necessarily get taught that way. But what you're doing is you're teaching your children, like you said, your children don't know anything about that, right? So in a simplified answer, if DNA has been programmed and it's carrying an instruction, how can you give DNA a new instruction? What can you do to transmit what might be emitting from you and override it with something else to change the instruction to a new instruction? So that's a simplified answer. It's not as complex when you have identified specifically in your DNA what it is that you're wanting to address and what it is that you're wanting to shift inside of you so that it does not go forward to your children. So I would say you would cancel. First thing that I would say do is you would cancel the instruction. You would cancel the functioning. You would cancel just inside of yourself. You cancel it. And then you send a new instruction. Going back to cancer, this is how New German medicine really talks about us shifting what's happening in our body. We shift the chemistry of our body, and we first shift the thought process. We shift the thought process first, which then shift the chemical reaction in our body, which then sends a different message. So without getting too technical, it's very simple. It's diligence, and it's sticking to what you believe is true for you and what you want to shift in your family heritage. So that's the short answer for you. And I hope that resonated with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's already there. I was putting it out there and seeing how you would receive and give it to the audience. The part for me in understanding, we taking the word DNA. You know, most people are Christians, and you believe in the Quran. The part in the Bible, especially the King James version, the most used word in that Bible 28,364 times is the word and. And if things are made in the reflection, so that means that every time you see and in the Bible, this reflection into you is DNA. So there in just that simple little word of and triggers and activates in the unconscious mind as how it's reflected, just as we would say how I live. And if you understand that the word live in reverse and being a reflection is the part of saying something is evil. I stayed 30 miles from Sandersville, Georgia, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was born, and have been there many times and looked at it. They got a prison over there because I had a cousin that was working there. And the part for looking at that whole institution in that land is carrying an energy that was prevalent to him becoming who he became.
Yeah. And that's why
Yes,
the
very
Bible,
powerful. Thank you so much.
and that's why the Bible cannot be taken literally, because there's too much metaphysical symbolism and other higher meanings to that book. And so, thank you, Brother Kwame, for bringing that out, the DNA and the and backwards. Let me get to this other question here because it relates to my friend's death. I would love to hear more information about kidney disease. Well, I'll let you speak, but let me share. Last December, my friend went into the VA hospital and they told him his kidneys were failing. And if he didn't get on dialysis, he probably wouldn't make it. Well, he made it to October 23rd because I needed that message for my grandmother. But for all that time, I was looking at kidney disease. Not only was his kidney failing, his prostate was weak, his bladder was not emptying correctly, and he had been constipated most of his life. Those were the four major areas of this Vietnam veteran that weakened and took him out of here. But mostly the kidney, because this year, yeah, when he went to the VA and they told him your kidneys will not last, your blood is poisoned. At this point in early October, the blood was poisoned because the kidneys. Well, let me tell you what I observed from this man for 5 years. And Louise Hay says it best in her book, Heal Your Body. She says criticism, disappointment, failure, shame, reacting like a little kid. When I set up a session with him and a medical doctor who is holistic doctor, and she gave him an hour of free time. And do you know what this man said after she suggested, well, maybe it could be something in a past life? And he said, I don't believe in it. So it was like after that, she said, well, let's do some tapping. He was willing to do EFT. If you know, we did some tapping, but after all that, he said, I don't know why my parents gave me away.
Mm,
So
mm,
the kidney is about, like we've been talking about, holding on to that childish attitude that why did my parents give me away? And then acting like, and then shame. He had shame is something that was going on, criticism, and a lot of disappointment from his son not connecting with him, from his well, just the fact that your parents give you to someone who abuses you most of your life, disappointment,
mm.
and then rejection, abandonment. That's what culminated in the four organs, like I can't take any more of this.
That's right. That's
So
right.
so kidney disease, address that from your perspective of, okay, in the courtroom of life, the creator's looking at you holding on to all these things you've gone through for 70 some years, and you have not been able to evolve, is what how I.
Absolutely. So I spoke about this a little bit earlier in my book. Um, I shared about how most of our illnesses, traumatic experiences, and even the things that we deal with as we get older and into adulthood is all connected to what we experienced as children, and it predisposes us to the things of life that
Yeah.
happens later on in life. And you just shared a beautiful example of that with reference to kidney disease, and you shared about his life and his parents having given him away. Louise Hayes definitely touched on, and I read her books and I utilize her books in my practice as well. The unaddressed experiences of childhood that leaves an everlasting impact on our lives. I cannot state enough how it is important that we seek out assistance with those things. We do not get away from them. And some people say, "Oh, I've gone through with it. I have forgiven. I have." You'll know when you least expect someone to tick you off, and you respond to that person as if the other person who did something to you at a younger age were there sitting with you or standing with you or speaking to you. You'll know whether or not you've truly forgiven, and so I can't state that enough, how we as a people, we have to get to a point of realizing that we're not okay. The brother Kwame mentioned a moment ago about what we've experienced as a people, and just inside of the DNA, and then each one of those, you ever wonder why we as Black people love cornbread? Like, what is that about? I mean, that just came to my mind. Like, what is what it I can't tell you how many people ask me, what is a grit? So we're saying you get eggs and grits and toast in the morning, right? And some
Yeah.
people say, what is a grit? They don't even know what it is.
I
But I'm
know.
I'm saying that to say we have been conditioned over generations to eat a certain way, to talk a certain way, to respond a certain way, and not ever really truly connecting to who we are as a people now. Like, we're not the people, if you believe you came from Africa, or if you believe that you were a native here in the Americas, we us today, we are not any of those people today. We have DNA relations, but we are a different people. And so, with that, we have to begin to consider, with us being a different person, we have been, I believe, we have been specifically made for this day and time to do something spectacular. When I think about, I am one of those who survived. Like, my foreparents didn't give up. They didn't jump the ship, or they weren't killed off. Like, wherever this DNA come from, they survived. And
Yeah.
so inside of that, it gives me power, and it gives me a sense of belonging, and it gives me a sense of making things better for my children and your children and children's to come after us. So it's important that we deal with things that we remember, things that we recall, and when it comes up, don't push it back down. Sit with it, write it out. You'd be amazed at how much expression, whether you'll have the ability to talk to somebody about it or write it out, you'd be surprised what that does to get it up and out of the body. And so that's what we're talking about. That simple process with your friend, the tapping. When you touch the body, like we were talking about earlier, how we most of us are not even in our body. We'll injure ourselves and won't even know it. It's because we are just so out of our body. We're so out of touch with what's happening right here that we don't realize it. When you touch the body, which massaging is very powerful with the right people that know how to give you a massage. They can
Yes,
massage away pain, not just physical pain, but emotional pain.
yes,
I'm a
yes.
witness of that. My sister Carmelita, if she's still on the line, she's got magical hands, y'all. I want to give her a shout out. Carmelita, Sister Carmelita. Um, but you can, the tapping, it elicited, even though he didn't know what he was doing, he didn't know why he was doing it, but he came out of his mouth to say, I don't know why my parents gave me away. That tapping, you tapped upon something and you touched on something that helped him to at least broach the conversation of something that probably was so deep in him for many, many years, and not saying it to anybody out of fear of whatever it could have been.
And you know,
So
sister, what goes along with that is feeling disrespected, because every time I would do something or say something that I wasn't aware of, I trigger people like hell. He would get so angry. And that's when I was like, whoa, what's that about? What's that about? And I realized later that he felt disrespected. It wasn't something I did intentionally, but it brought up that feeling again of my parents couldn't even keep me. My parents didn't love me. My auntie didn't love me. And he lost his authenticity. He lost his authentic self in all those early relationships. So that when all the women, he two wives and then me, they could trigger him easily because he hadn't healed that emotion of feeling
let
I'm
me
not
share
worthy.
something with you. You know,
Yes,
I talked about family mapping a few moments ago, a workshop that I do here in Atlanta.
yes.
And you just said something so profound. We live through the stories of other people. And those stories define how we show up in life today. The process of family mapping helps you to get to the truth of the matter. If the person has transitioned, it does not matter. The energy of whoever is involved in whatever traumatic experience you've had, that energy of that person shows up in another person who's present, who is willing to stand and hold space for you while you walk through that. I
Mhm.
cannot tell you how many times, and I have a great friend who was adopted, raised by parents of a different color than her. We did this process of family mapping. And what she found out is the story that she was told about her parents was not true. It was not true. It's the story that had been told. And so that story just kept getting told the same way over years and years and years. So when she became an adult, and she realized that that story was not absolutely correct and right, her life changed. And so it's sad to hear a lot of times that when we've had experiences, especially at infancy, at such an early childhood, we don't have the truth of the matter. We rely on those who we believe have the correct story, but that doesn't mean that's the right story. And how many times has the story been told and people have had to suffer consequences because the story wasn't correct? This leads us right into what you mentioned about your friend. He may have had pieces of his parents, but what he was made to believe is that he was not wanted. What he was made to believe is to be ashamed
Yeah.
because he was not wanted. He was not good enough for his parents. So how could he ever be good enough for anybody else? Like, there's so many different emotions come out of that. But had he had an opportunity to get the truth of what happened with his parents, the reason why they gave him up, if that's the truth of the story, he could have been taken. But the story was said that his parents gave him up. What difference in his life would that have made by getting the truth? That's why I do the work that I do, and I'm so passionate about it, to
Well,
get as
here's
much
something.
truth.
Yeah, here's something that his daughter told me recently, that the truth was that his aunt, they didn't give him to his aunt. His aunt took them, asked to
Look
take
at that.
him because She only had one child. She worked in a brothel. She needed help. All these reasons why she wanted to take their fourth child. But the thing is, they abused him. The aunt who took him was probably worse than the parents because there was verbal, physical abuse in that relationship with the aunt. So it was the most complicated story of relationship abuse, relationship trauma. And that's why my grandmother's showing up with her birthday helped me to realize, even with all how complicated that man was in relationship, I needed to learn that lesson.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're grateful
Yeah,
for the
this one.
things that show up that we can't create ourselves. It just out of seemingly miracles happen all around us. That's very profound, and that's powerful, and it happens all day long, believe it or not. One of
Oh,
my sayings that I say is, help me to see the miracle in everything, help me to see the blessing in everything. And with eyes like that, you and I both can heal through many different things that look one way, but it actually is something else, to
and
look with a different set of eyes.
and for us as a people to rise up and be the queens and the kings that we need to be in this time, which is so chaotic and so challenging, as Washita says, listening, quiet, grounding, forgiving, what is that? Canceling. This is what we need to put on our refrigerator every day,
Yes,
because we
yes.
can't lose sight of this anymore. The powers that be, the elite, the psychopaths, all of these people who want to control and kill us, they're working 24/7, and we're watching Netflix and thinking everything's okay. And we have to get really serious, I think. Washita says, listen to what your body is communicating, sit with it, release it, and no longer serves you. That's going to the tree and walking on the grass. All that happens when you do that. And Kwame says,
Absolutely.
John Bradshaw, inner child. You know, my friend actually did a lot of reading with John Bradshaw, and it still didn't really help him because it was so deep and so complex. Some things are so deep and so complex that all the work that you do with herbs and whatever, it's just not enough. It was meant to be a lesson for me to share now today, and
Mm-hmm.
get into this. Emotional trauma is very near the root of all of our diseases. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what my sister here and I are really harmonizing about and so conscious about, that we, whatever work we doing, we have to get to the emotional trauma that is still in the subconscious running that program.
Absolutely.
That's what Bruce Lipton talks about all the time, is that the epigenetics part is about the environment that is creating these the acid emotions that are creating this acid environment, and people aren't healing because they can't let go, or they can't move, like you said, into a new thinking. So
And we also have to remember too that we are first spiritual beings
yeah.
living in a physical existence. We can't always get so bogged down that what's happening to me physically is what's real. And I'm not saying to get so esoteric that you lose sight of everyday occurrences and having to deal through life. But we have to remember that. I'm a firm believer that we are spiritual beings first, living in this physical existence. And I believe, and I learned this through, more so through Dianetics that I do with clients, that we've lived more than one lifetime. This is not our only rodeo. And everything that we picked up from the last one, we brought with us to build to get us further along on this journey. You know, my daughter said something to me a couple of days ago. She said, Mom, and I really had to contemplate this. She say, it's not that we are getting older and dying. She said it's quite the opposite. We are growing more into who we are. So it's just like the reverse. When we are birthed, we don't know anything. And as we live longer, we learn more. It's like we're growing into something. We're not dying, we're living. And I had to really, I'm like, wow, that was really profound. And so I began to look at things from a whole nother perspective. Like, I'm not, as I get older, dying, I'm actually living. And I am carrying on something that can help me. I'm not saying that I want to die and go on to the next or anything like that by any means, stretch of the imagination. I'd like to be here and do this thing that I'm doing for as long as I am to be here to do it. However, at the same time, I know that this body, this body that I am residing in now is not the only body that I've ever resided in. And there are things that I know I didn't learn this lifetime. It's not just for me, it's for you too. It's for all of us. So we have to keep in mind and balance when we are looking at who we are, to balance it from a spiritual perspective, from a higher level of thinking perspective, and then make choices and decisions in our lives today that can impact positively, not just for ourselves, but everybody that we
And
are connected with.
and the struggle with that, sister, is that if you're in a religious mind, especially Christianity, you don't believe that. You don't believe that there's another life. You don't believe that this is not your first rodeo. That's what my friend struggled with.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because the belief is Jesus is coming back. That's reincarnation. So how, if indeed you don't believe that anybody's coming back, it's only one person that might come back. That flies in the face of something's not right here. Something's not right. He rose and he said, "These things greater shall ye do." So what does that mean? I mean, I'm not trying to profess that I know the Bible inside out. I know something of it. But one thing I do know is, if you believe he's coming back, that means that he died, he rose, and then he's coming back. He's coming back. I don't know. That's something to think about.
Well,
Don't take my word for it. Think about it yourself. Really think, not be so indoctrinated. There again, remember what I mentioned a moment ago about what we've been made to believe to be true. You and I have minds to think. We do. We have mind, and we have a connection, with the creator of all that is, because we have been created in the image of the creator of all that is, whatever image you think that is. So that would mean that you have a direct connection. You can sit with yourself and ask God questions. Ask the omnipresent being, Allah, Yahweh, whatever you want to call him. You can sit with yourself and ask intelligent questions and receive answers. So I don't know how to, and I'm not arguing the point of what is and what's not. All that I'm saying is my experience is I have a direct connection with the creator of all that is, because I'm made in their image. And so do you.
and that's what we all are seeking, a close relationship directly with the cotton macrocosm spirit that is within us, the kingdom within us. That's what we all should be seeking. Your daughter was talking about evolution. We are evolving. We're not dying. We're evolving to learn new things and then share, teach, love, listen, all that. Let's see. We got another comment here. Emotional trauma. Oh, we did that. There was, she had one more. Every birthday is a new age, not old age. All right now.
I love it. I love it. Ashe.
I say, oh, we are coming up with new ideas, new relationships with ourselves, especially loving ourselves. Like you said, touching ourselves. We got out of touch in so many ways, but now is the time. And I hope this month that people have learned one thing about this nurturing part of our chest is all. It's very spiritual. It's not just bringing out milk and having for and there for men to hold and cuddle and all that. It's a very spiritual energy inside of and on women, inside of women. which why it hurts me when they say they're going to cut it off. Oh my goodness. When the doctor, when women are listening to these oncologists and these medical professionals practicing, listen to, well, we'll just cut it off. That'll be the solution. And then what happened, sister? I had a lady earlier this year who had both breasts cut off, and the cancer came back, and she was at stage 4. So where does it
Mm-hmm.
come back? It comes back energetically in the tissue that is now gone. It still comes back in that location, which is the amazing part of this body, that you can cut off everything and it's still going to come back in the energetic form that starts up here. It's going to direct itself onto that place where it needs to show you you're out of balance, sweetheart, with the love that you need to have for this body. So I want to encourage anybody listening, before you think about cutting off parts, listen to my sister here and me, and meditate and listen and go to the tree, go walk barefoot, do things naturally, and meditate on why is this happening, not why it's happening, what's the lesson for me. If this is showing up in your body, what did I do to create this? And my sister has already shared what we do to create it. The stress is the number one cause of disease, and it comes in so many forms that we just have to get quiet to figure out why it happened, why I created this. I like to say we create the breast cancer and all the other diseases. So the body is trying to help us get back to quiet and meditation, right? To figure out how to undo it, because we can undo it, and
Mm-hmm.
don't have to cut it,
Absolutely.
don't have to cut it off, poison it, and radiate it to do that.
Absolutely. And I want, our listening audience or anyone who might be listening to this at a later moment in time. By no means are we saying for you not to get help, right? We're making recommendations for you on things to consider. I think there is a beautiful relationship when you can combine holistic health and wellness with traditional medicine. So I'm saying to do the necessary things to take care of yourself, but don't always believe the first thing that you hear. Get a second and a third opinion, and do the things. If you know you've lived a life that lists some of these things that we've talked about, do those things from a holistic perspective to live a whole wellness life. Make adjustments where necessary. Sometimes it can be so aggressive, this thing that we're calling cancer. It can be so aggressive where you may find out about it one day, and then in 2 weeks, they tell you it's done spread or what have you, whatever. I'm saying to you, do the necessary steps to keep yourself well. Do what is required immediately, and be consistent, with that.
Yeah, listening to your body, and the aggressive part of that, those cells multiply is your emotions. That's what
Absolutely.
my sister showed me that so clearly. Her grief was so strong, so deep after the loss of her child, that the tumors couldn't help but just keep growing and growing, because she couldn't let go of the grief. Grief is woo.
Absolutely.
That's why
Absolutely.
when someone dies, I try and say, okay, let's grieve, but don't stay there. Don't stay there.
Right.
Think
Right.
about my sister. She stayed there for 2 years, and woo, ate right
Yeah.
through her breast, and it was
That's
like
real.
the
That's
most
real.
powerful
That's
lesson I have
real.
ever get. So take the time to ask yourself, what is in my life? What relationships have I not healed and that need healing? And then the body will respond.
Absolutely. Now, there are many medicinal things that you can do. We haven't really touched on that.
Right.
If you are interested in getting, that would be a whole nother conversation. Because I have been helping a few of my clients that have been diagnosed with cancer, helping them through from a naturopathic perspective, and they've been utilizing some aspects of traditional medicine, coupling that together to get through um, what they've been diagnosed with as cancer, and they've been successful. So that's a whole nother conversation. You're welcome to reach out to me. Of course, I'm sure before we leave today, I can leave my information and you can
I
reach
was
out to
going
me
to
when
ask
you know
you
someone.
what is your do you have a website?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So you're welcome to go to the website, which is soulwisdomintl.com. That's soulwisdomintl.com. And you'll see some of the things that services that I offer, that we offer, some of the workshops that we offer
Okay. Is
as
there a
well.
phone number you want to give?
Say that again.
A phone number you want to give?
Yes, you're welcome to reach out to me during business hours at 770-906-6193. I do consultation over the phone virtually, as well as in person as well. There are some things that we can do virtually. You don't have to be here in the Atlanta area for us to start working together as well.
All right. Okay. So I'm putting that in the chat. Um so any final words as we prepare to leave? This has been an inspiring and
Yeah.
stimulating in so many
Yeah.
ways. I have learned so much. I am going to be using that courtroom analogy forever
That
because
is wonderful.
I never thought about having you having a consciousness as you were doing that job. So that's powerful. So that's so great.
Yeah,
So
that's
very
amazing. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. It is I learned later why I had that profession for so long, and I'm still learning and utilizing some of the skills that I learned during that profession in my life now. I'm happy that you're able to use that analogy and take that away into your life. That's amazing. That's truly amazing. I just want to say, just tremendous gratitude um, for the opportunity to be here to speak in this way, to share whatever I can share. And if I have offended anyone, I ask of your forgiveness. That has not been my intention. I'm very passionate about what I've discovered about myself and what I've discovered in the years that I've worked with clients. I'm very passionate about that. It doesn't mean that I have all of the answers, but there are some things that I have learned along the way that have helped others and that is beneficial. And even in my life, I always like to say I am the first example how my family and I relate to one another. That means so much to me. So I'm grateful. I don't know it all, and I'm still learning. It's so much to know out here. I will be forever a student. I'm grateful for my teachers that have willingly, lovingly poured into me. What you see right now is not of me. I am, like I started in the beginning, I am no thing, no one special, any special than anybody else. I have just decided to say, like in the movie The Matrix, when they said who will go after the Nebuchadnezzar. I'm just one of those who just said, I will go. And it's not easy by no stretch of the imagination. I'm sure you can agree with me that this work that we do, we take criticism, we take ridicule, we take, whatever belief systems other people have that might be in opposition to what it is that we're sharing. These are things that I'm speaking about that I can say I have seen people lives change. I've seen people lives transform. I have seen it work. The same way that you might say Jesus healed, I have seen healing happen from my hands and from those who I connect with, I partner with, my sisters and my brothers who are in this work with me. I have seen it with my own eyes. So, that's what I would leave to you. And if there's anything that I might be able to assist you with, please reach out to me. I have a compilation of others just like my sister here who or who's in this work with me, if there's something that I may not know or may not be available, I'll refer you over to someone else who might be a little bit more knowledgeable about something that I'm not as not. I don't cover everything. I know a little bit about everything. However, I specialize in a very few things. And so I'm okay with admitting that as well. So that is all. I'm just tremendously grateful for my ancestors, for all of those who came before me that created this space, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all of it. I'm grateful for all of it because I'm able to stand here, sit here, shall I say, with before you now and
I
share.
so appreciate your humility. You are a real humble servant. And my dad, I wrote a book about my dad. And when it was all done after 6 years, he said, "Oh, everybody has a story." And I'm like, after all this work, that's all you're going to say. But he was just a humble servant. He lived to be 95. So
Wow.
humility is goes with longevity. And but I say one thing about offenses: if you find yourself being offended or triggered, it's not that you want to blame the other person who spoke the words that you say triggered you. Ask yourself, why are you being triggered? Because it's usually some emotional stuffing that you've been doing that gets triggered, that needs to come out and be processed, and then love yourself more, and then thank the person who triggered you. That's how I look at it.
Say
It's work to
gratitude,
be done.
gratitude,
Yeah,
gratitude.
gratitude. There's work to be done when you get triggered. Don't look at the other person as, don't keep shoot the messenger, as they say. Just take the message and process it and grow with it. So thank you so much. I can't believe we
Ah,
did a
thank you.
2 hour show tonight. I've been trying to keep it to an hour and a half, but there was so much that needed to come out, and I'm just grateful that you were willing to bring it out and share with us. So I'll send you the link for sure. And Kwame says, "Thank us." We say here in this community, thank us, united souls and spirits coming together to help the raise the consciousness of this planet that is so in need of it. So have a great evening. Good evening. And tomorrow I'm coming back in the morning with some joint rolling. And I'm asking the question, why are 12-year-olds committing suicide? This is like crazy stuff going on in this country. And we got to talk about it. And then Sunday, we're talking about the liberal soul with some friends of mine who are coming together. The liberal soul. That's a deep discussion we're going to have on Sunday. So we'll see you next time. And for all my yogi friends out there, namaste, sat nam, and ashe, ashe o to all my family and friends. And shalom, love you.
Love you. Peace and love.